y'all. Give me a moment to turn this music down. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Hello. Let me know if everything is sounding good. Hi, Klutzmutt. Welcome on into the stream. I've never been to one of your lives. Well, welcome. It's great to have you. This live is going to be a little bit different. So, if you guys may remember, I don't know, it's been a minute, but last year I kind of experimented doing a live video essay format. So that is what this video is gonna kind of be. It's gonna be a combination of like a live video essay and a discussion. So I really want to hear from you guys. I want this to be more interactive. This is going to be a follow-up to my previous YouTube video about hair representation in gaming. For those who may be tuning in, there is a link in the description to the original video. And I know some people might not, I don't know, some people don't necessarily read for the context, but that is the context of this stream. So it's going to be a little bit different, less like chill in like gaming and more like let's delve deeper into one of my existing social commentary videos. We're going to talk a little bit more about Black hair history. We're gonna I'm going to talk about some other media examples as well that don't necessarily have to do with gaming. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my own personal journey with black hair. So think of this as an accessory to my previous video. The previous video was more so using a recent event to talk about a broader issue. And today I'm just going to get into the nitty-gritty about more history and more examples and just how this topic of Afro-textured hair is very intersectional and it matters. That's basically it. But yes, thank you all for being here, and let's go ahead and get started. I sound good? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Alrighty, let's go ahead and turn this music off, and then I'm gonna take you guys over to my desktop for the presentation. Alright, here we go. So I feel like there's one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, if you are excited for this, be sure to leave a like on the stream. The engagement definitely helps. And I feel like there's something else I wanted to say. Oh yes, and please read leave your messages and your comments in the chat if you have any thoughts about the various things that I'm going to be discussing today. I might not respond like immediately in the moment, just because, you know, I have slides and I have this presentation prepared. So just because you leave the message, like I don't read it right away, don't think I'm not going to get to it. I have different parts of the stream I'm going to dedicate to like looking through comments. So yes, I want this to be interactive. So please leave your messages, and of course be kind. Again, this is going to be more of a social commentary video essay style video. So yes, just be respectful to everybody. We can have differing opinions, but just be nice. I feel like that's a given. Most of y'all are good at that, but you never know. So we might have the occasional troll. Hopefully that's not the case. And hello, JJ. How are you? Thank you for coming on in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. As we can tell by the title and the thumbnail, I'm calling this Our Crowning Glory, a discussion about good hair, respectability, and freedom. So like I've already said, if you need the full context, please go ahead and watch my previous video. It's called This Sims 4 Collaboration Proves That Hair Representation in Gaming is Necessary. So this is the context for what I'm going to be talking about today and the history I'm going to be getting into. So yes, media literacy is important. I'm assuming you have already watched this video. I mean, you technically don't need to watch it as a precedent, but it makes more sense of why I'm talking about this topic. So yeah, that's of course linked in the description. And hi Bree, welcome on in. Bree's my moderator today. And yes, be sure to leave a like on the stream. The engagement definitely helps. So with that being said, this is my hair discrimination. Hello. Okay, this is my agenda today. I'm going to start off by talking a brief history of hair assimilation and its ongoing effects. We're going to get into I'm calling this why are we still touching Black people's hair in 2024 and other forms of caucasity. We're gonna of course get into the respectability of Black hair, and under that point we're also going to talk about texturism and, you know, racism, all those other topics. And last but not least, we're going to talk about anti-Blackness and how it's internalized and the ways that Black people can also perpetuate racist myths and stereotypes as well. So again, these are just some of the topics, and I have lots of examples, but this is just a brief breakdown of what we're going to be covering. And these SpongeBob GIFs are just for fun. I literally felt like the one on the left, like, felt that's how I felt when I was putting together this presentation. And hello, is it Mumia? I hope I'm saying that correctly. Welcome on in. And Blazeman, welcome on in. You guys have come just in time. All right, so previously in my previous video, we dug into a brief history of Black hair. We talked about how varying African hairstyles meant different things in different African cultures. So your hairstyle or elements of your hairstyle in different countries across, you know, the African continent represented your marital status. It could represent your spirituality, your religion, the tribe you were from, your age. Different elements of Black hairstyles in Africa meant different things. We dug into the history, or last time we also talked about the history of Black people coming on over into this country, being enslaved, how slave owners would shave Black people's hair. For one, it was a sanitary thing. Obviously, the Middle Passage was not very sanitary. So one of the main reasons for shaving their hair was to get rid of, you know, lice or any other, you know, diseases or bacteria. But another reason for that was also stripping Black people of that part of their humanity. It was just an additional way to dehumanize. And throughout the eras of slavery, Black people have used, you know, what was available to them and did the best that they could to take care of their hair. Something I read about was using things like bacon grease or butter to moisturize. And yeah, they just did the best that they could with what they had. But then we kind of move. I also talked a little bit about last time into, how do I want to say this? The discrimination that Black people continue to face with natural hairstyles. And I have an example on the right of a teenager who got basically suspended from school because he was wearing dreadlocks. And we just talked about a history of that pattern happening throughout history of Black people, you know, having rich history with their hair, being forced to either having it forcibly removed or required to cover it, and how there's still discrimination when it comes to hair happening today. So brief breakdown of what we discussed last time. However, the history we did not talk about is forced assimilation. So after, I'm trying to stop saying as many, filler words, but after enslavement, Black people were like, we have to get jobs. So our hair has gone through a lot of different, has gone through a lot of different transformations under this lens of trying to be, I guess the word would be palatable to white people. So we have a pattern of hair straightening becoming more popular in the eras after enslavement. In a brief history, which we'll get to throughout the 60s and 70s, there was a resurgence of embracing Black hair through things like the Black Power movement and the Black Panther Party. And then we kind of went through another 180 as we get into more recent years, as again, Black people had to go back to work in the corporate world. And we see that pattern continuing today. And in this far right image, this is an excerpt from the Crown Act. Dove is the corporate sponsor of the Crown Act, so they have a whole page on their website dedicated to these statistics, and it's linked in the description below. So if you want to follow along with my sources, those are there. But one of the studies they did said that Black women are 80% more likely than white women to agree with this statement. I have to change my hair from its natural state to fit in at the office. And so all of these examples here are ways that we see assimilation showing up when it comes to Black hair. So, now we're going to talk about this man. You're probably wondering, like, who was this man to the left? So this is Garrett Augustus Morgan. He is actually a pretty well-known inventor. He created things like the first three-way traffic light. He also invented the gas mask, but he also invented the first chemical hair relaxer. And the first documented hair relaxer began with him, Garrett Augustus Morgan, and he created it in the early 1900s. So his hair straightening cream was found accidentally when he was trying to find a solution to ease friction on sewing machines in his tailor shop. So Garrett was a tailor for a time in his life, and he was, like tailoring garments, and when he was working with like thicker and curlier fabrics such as wool, he realized that there was a lot of like friction in, the sewing machine. And so he was trying to find like a lubricant to basically make tailoring these heavier, curlier textures of clothing easier. So, he went up to his lab, whipped up some stuff, and he found the first chemical, combination for what would eventually become the modern day hair relaxer. He found it, so he created this, concoction. He tested it out on his client's clothes, and then after he found out that worked, he decided to test it out on his neighbor's dog. I hope he actually got, permission for that. Don't just be taking folks' dogs and, conducting experiments. But the neighbor had, I believe it was called an Airedale dog. I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure about dog breeds, but it was a curly-haired dog breed. And he was like, wow, the dog's hair is straight. And then after that, he tested the concoction on himself. And so we have Garrett Augustus Morgan to thank for the first chemical hair relaxer. Anyways, we see this advertisement to the right, which was from 1619. And we can you can read this like text at the bottom. I'll read it out loud. It says, "Why be untidy about your hair when it can be avoided? G.A. Morgan's hair refiner will positively straighten the hair and make a complete change in your appearance within 15 minutes. Morgan's hair pressing nightcap," which is on like these bottom images, keeps the hair in perfect condition and trains it while you sleep. Everybody should use one. So I thought this was interesting. He created the first hair relaxer. He called it a hair refiner. And then he also created this is low-key a do-rag at the bottom. Like, we might have to credit him for the do-rag too. But yes, I thought this ad was interesting. And hello, Fudgy. Welcome on to the stream. You came just in time. We're just getting started. So this early 20th century ad, the hair refiner, was originally marketed to Black men. I'm sure they marketed to Black women as well. But I feel like some of the bigger faces we think about when we think about Black women's beauty, especially the origins of it, is Madam C.J. Walker. And another unsung hero, I would say, in Black women's hair care is also Annie Malone. This is something really interesting that I found when doing this research. I'm going to read an excerpt from a reading, or I guess an article I found on the National African American History Museum in Washington, D.C. So it's the Smithsonian Museum. They have a website that has some, great readings and has other artifacts of Black history. And I found this really great piece on the complex history of the hair comb and hair straightening. And so I'm gonna read you a brief excerpt. So Annie Malone, who's pictured on the left, she noticed throughout segregated America that Black women working labor-intensive jobs in the South had little time or education on how to properly care for their hair, causing it to become susceptible to ailments such as dandruff, alopecia, and other forms of scalp disease. This motivation, along with her early passion for styling her sister's hair, inspired Malone to help other Black women improve their grooming habits. She understood that for African American women, appearance and grooming represented more than personal style. It could also indicate a woman's class and social standing. That's important. We're going to come back to that later. Annie Malone also, during that time, learned chemistry and established a successful business after developing a line of products that were advertised to help improve scalp health and promote hair growth. After early success in Illinois, Malone moved to Missouri in 1902 and founded Poro College, a beauty school which would be a source of employment for tens of thousands of Black women. Sarah Breedlove, who later changed her name to Madam C.J. Walker, would become one of Poro College's many agents, and I kind of think of this as what we would now call like a brand ambassador. And both Walker's personal hair journey and the foundation of Malone's training would motivate Madam C.J. Walker to begin manufacturing and selling her own products. And so this was the beauty school that we just talked about. This is Poro College. And this was actually named after the Poro Society, which is an organization in West Africa that exemplified physical beauty in addition to spirituality. So the school would become a source of employment for many Black women, as we've talked about. And then Sarah Breedlove, who changed her name to Madam C.J. Walker, would, become one of those, ambassadors and someone who benefited from the education under Annie Malone. So I thought this history is really interesting because I feel like oftentimes we just think of Madam C.J. Walker as like the pioneer of Black women's hair care, but it's really interesting to read about Annie Malone and her history and how she's really kind of the unsung hero, if you will, behind Madam C.J. Walker. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. And these are some of Madam C.J. Walker's official products. So we have a glossine and pressing oil. We have the wonderful hair grower. We got this person, with the bundles to the front to the side. And then the hair and scalp preparation. So these are some of her popular products. Something else I wanted to mention is that Madam C.J. Walker didn't actually invent the hot comb or the hair relaxer. So we already kind of talked about who created the hair relaxer. That was Garrett Morgan. And but Madam C.J. Walker she created a version of the hot comb that was more suitable to more coily and kinkier hair textures. So she modernized the hot comb, but she also was mostly known for her hair pressing methods. So you can see this picture to the right. This is a page from one of Madam C.J. Walker's textbooks. Madam C.J. Walker ended up creating her own beauty school later along in her life. And this was one of her popular methods for pressing Black hair. So this was like the first silk press, if you will. Oh, that's not right. All right. My bad. Okay. But this kind of leads me to my next point, which I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of the complex relationship that the Black community has with hair straightening. I feel like, when we say words like relaxer and hot comb, I know that brings back, specific memories for many people. But what I think was interesting is that, or I'm gonna just read this excerpt from, again, this is that Smithsonian Museum article. The reasons for hair straightening vary from person to person. For some, it marks the passage to adulthood, from the childhood tradition of wearing braids. Thus, having straightened hair allowed for a woman to wear it out as a preferred style before natural styles were considered fashionable. For other women, having straight hair aided with assimilating into a society where having long straight hair was valued as good hair. An asset that many perceived as more attractive. Straightened hair could also result in elevating a woman's personal, social, and economic status, providing more opportunities for success. And I really think this is one that we're going to kind of talk about different elements, but I really feel like this idea of, again, being able to improve your social status, again, with your appearance, is one of the reasons that hair assimilation became a part of Black hair history, if you will. And I actually forgot earlier, I was supposed to read a definition of forced assimilation or cultural assimilation. So I'm, this is kind of out of order, but I'm gonna just read it now. So according to Wikipedia, cultural assimilation is the process in which a minority group or culture comes to resemble a society's, let me say that again. Cultural assimilation is the process in which a minority group or culture comes to resemble a society's majority group or assimilates the values, behaviors, and beliefs of another group, whether fully or partially. During cultural assimilation, minority groups are expected to adapt the everyday practices of the dominant culture through language and appearance, as well as via more significant socioeconomic factors, such as absorption into the local cultural and employment communities. Like we talked about, Black people needed jobs. Whether via colonialism or within one nation, methods of forced assimilation are often unsustainable, leading to revolts and collapses of power to maintain control over cultural norms. Often cultures that are forced into different cultural practices through forced cultural assimilation revert to their native practices in religions that differ from the forced cultural values of other dominant powers. So I know it's kind of a long blur, but I wanted to make sure I actually give context to what is the actual, what is giving a framework to the meaning of, assimilation, which I'm sure, y'all mostly know, but for context. So yes, the Black community, I feel like, has a complicated relationship with hair straightening. Like this excerpt talked about, like for some people, it was a symbol of like growing up. Like when you got to wear your hair straight, like you were getting grown. But also it was more socially acceptable for a long time to see straight hair as like the professional default style, So speaking of hair straightening, I want to read these statistics from the Crown Act. Once again, the link to this is in the description. So these two excerpts are from a 2023 study, a workplace study, that surveyed 2,990 female identifying respondents in the US, their ages 25 to 64, between December 2022 and January 2023. All of the respondents of this study were employed part or full-time at the time of the study. So we can see it to the left. They found in this research that 2/3 of Black women changed their hair for a job interview. Among them, 41 changed their hair from curly to straight. And then also we have another statistic that they found that Black women with coily or textured hair are twice as likely to experience microaggressions in the workplace than Black women with straighter hair. JJ says, hot combs, let me cover my ears so they won't burn. For real. It was very interesting doing this research and having to, we'll get more into hot combs relaxers, our hair burning, but yes, feel free to come through with your hair stories. Fadi says, yes, ma'am, I've been natural for 8 years, locked for almost 2 years. It has been so freeing. Ooh, I know my friend started her lock journey during the pandemic, And so, yes, I'm so happy for you. Now Bree says, I definitely be throwing on a straight wig for interviews. Yo, this is the thing. This is the issue. You know, like people should not be feeling like they have to conform, you know, to a standard just for the sake of getting in the door. Like that is trash. But that's just at work. The Crown Act also covers schools, hair discrimination in schools. So this study is a 2021 study conducted by the Joy Collective in the US among 1,000 black and white girls ages 5 to 18. So they found in this study that 100% of black elementary school girls in majority white schools who report experiencing hair discrimination state they experienced the discrimination by the age of 10. So every single one of these 1,000, girls, black girls they studied experienced this discrimination before, like by the age of 10. These are babies. And then another piece of data they found is that while 90% of these young girls believe that their hair is beautiful, the microaggressions and discrimination she endures has an impact on how she sees herself. And this is particularly of the black respondents. So, yes, the black community has a very complicated relationship with hair straightening, as y'all can tell by the chat. And then also, from this data, but I kind of want to take a little bit of time to talk about my own personal hair journey. I don't want to take up too much time, but I thought it'd just be interesting because I feel like everybody has, their own journey when it comes to hair acceptance and, conformity and all of the things. So I threw up a few pictures, so you guys are going to see baby Asmara in a little bit. But yeah, I was, once again, like a lot of kids, I grew up with a lot of hair. Exhibit A, this is me. I've always had a lot of hair. And okay, let me start off with this disclaimer. So I'm telling my story of kind of like how I've come to be someone who mainly wore their hair straight to somebody who now mainly wears their hair curly and in protective styles. But I also want to say that I acknowledge that parents do the best that they can with the information that they have. No parent is going to be perfect. And me sharing this story is not an attempt to defame my family or be like, I wish I would have grown up differently. Like, there's definitely things I wish were different, but I also acknowledge that if colonialism got our parents, or if colonialism got us, they certainly got our parents. So I don't blame my parents. I don't hold this against them. I'm not saying this to, come for their throats, but I'm just sharing my experience because I'm sure other people can also resonate and, learn from it. So yes, like I said, I was born with a lot of hair from the time I was a baby. But I will say, growing up, my mother just didn't have a lot of information on black hair care. And that's simply because her mother and her family never really had that information either. Like, my grandma grew up going to the hair salon every week. They didn't grow up with the wealth of information about, hair care for us. And so that's just not information that my mom really passed on to me. And so I definitely was that kid that grew up tender-headed. I would often cry when somebody tried to put, a comb through my hair. These are some pictures of me as a kid. I was trying to find some pictures of me with big hair, but they're somewhere. But these are some pictures of me growing up. But yes, this was tender-headed Asmara. And oftentimes the default would be my mom would, to kind of help with the, what is the word? To help with the struggle as we saw it at the time, that was hair day. Relaxers just were naturally a thing that I got. So, and again, this is because there wasn't a lot around this time, the early 2000s, there wasn't like this movement about natural hair care. A lot of our parents and our grandparents were still, putting relaxers and perms in their hair. It was not uncommon, for young black girls to just, have the the hair burning sensations from a relaxer just kind of get put onto us. So yeah, this is baby me. I would say in middle school and high school is when I started to stop getting relaxers, but I still went to the hair salon and I would just get my hair pressed. What's the next picture? So these are some pictures of me in high school. And so I would get my hair pressed, basically every month, like clockwork. So the relaxers slowly started coming out, but I was still wearing my hair straight just because it's what I was always used to. But in high school, I did want to start exploring how to take care of my natural hair. So these are some, pictures of that transition. Can we first talk about, I wanted to include this picture in the far left because can we talk about how fried and burnt? I don't know what this hair situation was, the fried curls, but that was a thing. The picture on the far right was actually when my curls were starting to get together. My curls definitely were a lot looser when I first started sort of the natural hair journey, but the longer I've been wearing my hair natural, I feel like it's just been back to its coily, curly texture. And then high school is also the age that I started experimenting with protective styles. This is something I just never really grew up with, and that's mainly because of the lack of knowledge of the different things we can do to our hair that aren't necessarily relaxing our natural texture and chemically altering the structure of our curls. But yeah, this also was the era of me beginning with protective styles, and I've pretty much just been a curly girl and a protective style girl ever since. So yes, a little bit of history of my personal hair journey to coming to accept my curls. I definitely think for me, a big turning point in me accepting my hair, I definitely would say is around the age of 16. When I started to become really interested in like Black history, learning about Black culture, Black politics, Black representation. That's just kind of the age where I really started, getting involved in those conversations. And I think that's really the turning point for me at least, I'm not saying this for everybody, of like why I wanted to start just wearing my hair the way it naturally grows out of my head. Again, this is nothing like against hair straightening. I'm not saying just because somebody has straight hair that they're necessarily like not with the culture and with the cause. But for me, definitely like my knowledge just about even the history of what natural hair styles meant in Africa, before colonialism, conversations around, just different social issues that were happening to Black people. I also read, like, what books was I reading around the time? I read The Hate U Give. Y'all, like, this was the era of, like, the Blackification of Asmara. And I definitely think one of those ways that manifested is in me also wanting to learn how to take care of my hair, and seeing my natural hair also, like, as enough. Okay, I need some water. I've been talking. Fudgy says we have to give them grace. Yes, so I wanted to make that clear because I don't want to come off as if I'm like, if it wasn't for that, that relaxer, like I acknowledge that, like I said earlier, if colonialism got us, colonialism got our parents too, So you can't blame people who are a product of the time that they were, growing up in. But it's good to evolve as more information, like as we have more access to information and as times evolve, Thug is a great book. Yes, The Hate U Give is a phenomenal book. It came out around the time I was in high school. And so that was definitely one of my introductions to, like, just, I guess, I would even say just like my passion for Black history and Black studies. So, yeah. Bree says, my mom decided to relax my hair at 2 years, and then I decided to start my natural hair journey when I went to college. Been fully natural since 2019. Ooh, that's cool. Cause yeah, I included this picture of me in 2019 because this is, I think the last time I had my hair flat ironed. So on the left was not relaxed. It was just my natural hair just straight. But I'm pretty sure this is the last time, if I can remember correctly, that, that my hair was straight. So yeah, when I went to college too, I've not touched a flat iron since college. And Brie, you're good at like braiding your hair too. I wish I had those skills. I will continue to pay to have folks braid my hair. But yeah, so I kind of talked a little bit about my story about how I kind of learned to start accepting my hair and my curls and, that part of my identity. But this idea of accepting natural curls and natural Black features came far before me. Throughout my, hair research, one of the big movements that started making a statement with natural hair is definitely Black nationalists that largely informed the Black Power movement and the Black Power Party. I'm going to read a brief excerpt from not time for Malcolm yet, but I'm gonna read a brief excerpt from this website called odellbeauty.com. So in the 1960s, the afro became a symbol of self-empowerment and activism. An extension of the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement of the 60s and 70s aimed to change the Black community's understanding of itself and its influence on society. The natural afro became a popular statement of power, pride, and resistance. Some people felt hair straightening reflected a history of forced assimilation, so embracing their natural textures was a way of reclaiming their roots. Rocked by iconic Black activists, scholars, and artists like Angela Davis, Toni Morrison, and Nina Simone, the hairstyle symbolized the enduring fight against racism. And so obviously one of the great thought leaders of the Black nationalist movement during that time is Malcolm X. And so I have this brief clip because something that was a big part of his philosophy was also like radical self-love for Black people. And so this was definitely, I feel like this clip embodies what the afro meant to these people that subscribe to this this rhetoric of Black power, basically.
Who taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
All right, so yeah, just a little excerpt of like, this was, I feel like, the time that the idea of embracing Blackness as it is kind of became a part of like Black discourse and kind of into this sort of, this space, like what is the word I'm looking for? It became like a conversation, basically. So I wanted to share that. Another thing that I would say would definitely influence the way that Black people have embraced their curls and just their natural features is I want to talk briefly about, or give a little bit of credit to Natural Hair YouTube, which I know has many controversies. I know it is not perfect. I know there's been some people making videos of how the natural hair movement failed. And yes, it was not perfect, but I definitely think the influx of information from people on YouTube learning to take care of their natural hair definitely influenced a lot of people in their journey. So I want to also give a little bit of credit to that as well. I'm pretty sure there was even like, I'm trying to think of the name. I think there's like a festival or like a convention for like curly haired what like curly hair people, like I forget what it's called. I don't know why I'm forgetting it, but I'm pretty sure that yeah, there was just a lot of like around this time of like maybe 2012 to like 2016ish is when I would say is the peak of natural hair YouTube. There was definitely a lot more conversations of, hey, black people, like we actually can show up in the world as we are, you know, as our full selves, and that is valid too, you know. The controversies. Yes. So I know there are controversies, but I definitely also think it did play a role in how we view black hair. Is like the movement that was also happening virtually. But okay, I want to take a moment to ask you guys a question. And I'm just interested in hearing different people's perspectives. So I'm gonna use this as a moment to. I'm gonna read the question, and then we'll kind of take a break. I'll let you guys, you know, leave your messages, think about your thoughts. But yeah, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about this. So, what are your thoughts on black people still today using chemical hair relaxers, given that knowledge about natural hair care is more accessible now than ever before? And for the sake of the argument, we're going to exclude people who choose to relax their hair for the sole purpose of remaining employed. I know there's many nuances to that. But do you think that like using chemical hair relaxer still in 2024, do you think this is just a mere form of hairstyle preference? Like do you think it's not really it's nothing really more than that? Or do you think that this could also be a form of assimilation or even a form of anti-blackness derived from the idea that like black hair is hard to manage? So, yeah, a kind of layered question, but I really want to like ask you guys and see what your thoughts are on this. So I'm actually gonna take a brief break. I'm gonna run an ad. I'm not gonna be here, so you're not gonna miss anything. But feel free to like ponder on this question, type out your thoughts, and we'll be back in a few. Wait, hold on. I forgot I need to actually go to my dashboard to run the ad. Okay, I'm gonna run the ad and then I'll come back to the question. But feel free, please leave your answers. I'm interested in hearing what y'all think. All right. Hello, folks. Welcome back. Okay, I see your messages. Bree says, I think to each their own. I think some Black women do it because they feel it's easier to manage versus their natural hair texture. I think anyone is capable of learning how to properly take care of their natural hair, but I also respect anyone's decision to do what's best and easiest for them. I see that. Fuddy says, I think learning to properly care for very textured hair has a learning curve and requires time investment. I was fortunate enough to have time to learn in depth. Not everyone has that opportunity. That's also a good point. I was actually watching a video, which I'll get to. That's actually the next slide. There's this creator I watch who talked about like we have to also give people grace because like, you know, in America, you know, we have people working, you know, 60-hour work shifts like it's normal, you know, back in, and if you think about like even back in like Africa, like before colonialism, like before, you know, Columbus started exploring, like there were days to like do your hair, like rest was like a part of routine, but like in America where we're all about labor, like, you know, people aren't given that sort of same time, like, as we should, you know, be able to, whether it's work on our hair or just work on our health in general. Like, there really is more, like, there's so many different societal factors that go into people having that knowledge and also being able to act upon that knowledge, you know? So I like that you brought up that. JJ says, I'm not going to yuck people's yum if they want to use it, but it's fine for them. I'm going to continue to mind my own Black business and continue to do what I know works best for my hair. I respect that too. The Comfy In. Hi, how are you? It's hard to imagine using a relaxer now, knowing the harm it may cause to our health. Interested to hear somebody else's thought process who may still choose to use them. Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the health concerns because literally I have another slide because as I was doing research, I did not know the types of things that hair relaxers are giving, you know, women. But yeah, I'll get to that in the next slide. But how are you? I hope you're doing good, the Comfy In. Oh, by the way, this is random fun fact. So the Comfy In, she's my friend. She made these earrings, which are super cute. They're handmade. Taylor, if you want to plug your store, feel free to. If you can put the link and Bree just accept it, because it'll block links because, you know, YouTube. But yeah, my friend makes custom jewelry. It's really cute. Anyways, okay, back to relaxers. Let me see. It's just sad that 24 of the 50 states only have the Crown Act passed. Why is that? Probably racism, you know, colonialism. For my mom, she relaxed my hair due to her being a single parent and not having much time and availability to do my hair. It's kind of like we talked about before, you know, people be working way too much in this society. Same reason why I grew up off processed foods and frozen foods. That's actually that's a good comparison. That is a good comparison. Since I'm older, I can take the time for myself to do my hair and cook for myself healthier meals, but not everyone has that luxury. That is a good point of like luxury and like how even, what's the word? Like socioeconomic status and class has to do with that, you know? You know, it's a very layered topic of like, again, like the various ways that this world is demanding us to take time away from the home and from our health. You know, not that it should be that way, but you know, it is. Fudgy says, going back to the hair YouTuber controversy, finances also played a big part of the decision. Natural hair products are expensive, and my 4C girlies were tricked into believing the products would loosen their natural texture. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because, like, I literally was just watching a video about this whole conversation, but it's wild that, like, back in the day, like, some of these natural hair YouTubers, not all of them, but some of them were really gaslighting. They were like, yes, if you just use these 3 products, your hair will look exactly like mine. And it's like, it's funny. Like, now looking back with the information we have, even with, like, the texture, like, scale, like, you know, what is that called? The system, you know, the Texture system, ABC, or yeah, like, yeah, you know, 4C, 4B, all these different things, 3C. Yes, also, another thing that I thought was interesting is like, y'all remember, that, what is it? Oh, that hair relaxer box for kids, the Just For Me, you know, the one that had, I know there was one that had the girl with the bayang. I saw on Twitter not too long ago, these girls were saying that their hair was never relaxed. It was just pressed. So they had us believing not only the false advertising, they had us believing if we use this product, our hair's gonna look like that. And most of them said they never had relaxed hair. It was either moussed or it was pressed. I'm like, that's wild. Capitalism be capitalisming, you know? Anyways, okay. Yeah, that was a good discussion. Thank you guys for your thoughts. And a kind of like a follow question that I had, this is more of like a rhetorical question, is like one of the big conversations when it comes to like hair relaxing, changing your texture, is this idea of like black hair being hard to manage. And it kind of leads me to think or question if black hair really is harder to manage, or is there simply a lack of education, a lack of representation, and a lack of tolerance for Afro-textured hair? And of course, like you guys mentioned, I think another good thing to put in here is time, you know, and the socioeconomic disparities that don't value people being able to invest in self-care. That is, you know, a problem as well. But yeah, I also was just kind of thinking, like, if we didn't compare, like, let's say white or even like Asian American hair, like, to like the standard, would we still be making these sort of statements about black hair being harder to manage? You know, it's kind of hard for me to kind of differentiate this conversation from colonialism, because so much of like what we, so much of our culture and our thinking has been influenced by colonialism. Like, it is hard to separate what's really our own free thought and what did, you know, colonialism introduce. So even that idea of black hair being harder to manage, like if, you know, if the colonizers never came over here, if Christopher Columbus never went exploring, you know, like, what really would be our thought of our own hair, you know? Just something to think about. JJ says, yes, that irked me. The liars, for real. Like, this is like capitalism at its finest. I remember that Twitter thread. Yes. The false advertising, for real. Oh, yes. And that is my friend Taylor's store. So, you know, feel free to give it a look. She has some cute stuff. I think she might be sold out of stuff, but she has some cute stuff. Little shameless self promo. Support black businesses. But going back to what the Comfy Inn said earlier about the harms of chemical hair relaxers. So back in 2022, I think it was 21 or 22. I think it was 22. There was a lawsuit that had come out of various hair relaxing companies, such as, this is the Just For Me box with the girl with the bayang. Dark and Lovely was another one, and I don't know what this one is down here, but there was basically a lawsuit of this woman had gotten uterine cancer. And one of the links, or one of the causes that they found, is that some of the chemicals in a lot of these popular hair relaxing brands were causing women, not just her, but other women, things like uterine cancer, breast cancer, fibroids, and endometriosis. So if you have ever kind of been involved in this conversation, you might know that Black women are disproportionately more likely to be victims of these different health concerns. And it's really interesting to see how much more the rates increase in this study that they did about hair relaxers. And I also think this is a good thing to mention is because my previous video was about Dark and Lovely and their collaboration with Ebonics and the hair representation out of that. But I do think it is important to I feel like this brings up an interesting point that yes, brands can also do be part of good campaigns like this. But they can also, have perpetuated some of the harmful the harmful can also have done stuff that have perpetuated harm in the past, if that makes sense. So yes, Dark and Lovely does make hair relaxers. Do they still do that? I'm pretty sure they still do it, but I just thought it was, just something to mention. There can be two things true at once, like the hair representation campaign is really great, but also maybe the hair relaxer's not so great. Motion, am I reading that right? Motion is the brand in the third box. Okay, that's great. That's good to know. Thank you. But yeah, so this is Wine and Chill. Her first name is Stephanie, and this is actually the creator I was talking about earlier. This is a really great video. She is a former lawyer, and so she looked into the lawsuit and she kind of broke it down, and she kind of gives her own social in kind of commentary with it. Stephanie is also very funny. So I wanted to kind of show a few excerpts of some of the health concerns that are being brought about by chemicals found in hair relaxers. And hopefully this plays at the time I want it to play.
Now, this came out I think this came out before the lawsuit hit the news, that chemical hair straightening linked to uterine cancer study warns Black women. So these are the specific stats from that study. So specifically, since when you, again, get on the hair relaxer train, it's multiple times a year. The study specifically, and to note, did not find that the relationship between straighteners and uterine cancer differed by race. It warned, though, that the impacts may be greater for Black women because of higher prevalence of use. So with that, this is the first study of this kind. Maybe if they were to do multiple, maybe they would say, hey, by race, it does differ. So that was one thing. But the study did track 33,497 women in the United States between the ages of 35 and 74. And they found that women who reported frequent use of hair straightening products, so these are specifically relaxer products, were more than twice as likely to develop uterine cancer compared with those who did not use the products. And this is just one of the health issues to note. There are numerous.
So like she said, there are numerous health issues to note. Uterine cancer is just one of them. The study later found that women who use these hair relaxers were 4 times more likely to happen, or uterine cancer was 4 times more likely to happen for frequent users of these relaxers. Later on in the video, it also goes on to, let me find this timestamp.
Now, this came out.
Oh, why is it not? Hello. Why are you not going? Oh, 49, 31, 39. Okay, here's another statistic. More recently, the National Institute of Health spent 8 years studying over 4,600,000 women between the ages of 35 to 74. They're looking for links between chemical hair relaxers, and they discovered that African-American women's breast cancer risk increased by 45%. So not only do we have the uterine cancer, we have the higher likelihood of developing breast cancer. A little bit later, or is it right here? Is this Oh, this is a statistic about the fibroid risk. A 2012 study in the American Journal of Epidemiology. Listen, science is not my ministry. Associated fibroid risk with the use of hair relaxers. And then last but not least, one of the last health issues that this lawsuit covers. And again, there could be more. This is just the ones that were in this particular lawsuit. Let's see, 5341.
Like, you know, they're used to suffering. It's fine. And it's just a little bit upsetting. It's just a little...
Hold on, where's this other statistic? 53... Why can't... Sorry, y'all. I can't find it. Maybe I put the wrong timestamp. But the last one I was going to show is that some of the chemicals, I think they're called phthalates, that are found in hair care products, such as chemical relaxers, are also linked to causing endometriosis. So I'm not sure if it's on here or if I got the wrong timestamp. But yes, Stephanie's video, who is linked in the description, is very good. Actually, her videos, she does like these live streams, very much inspired like these type of live streams you're watching right now. So yeah, very good video if you want to, you know, hear more about the concerning chemicals, the concerning health concerns that are coming as a result of consistently and frequently using products such as chemical hair relaxers. Where is our class action lawsuit? Yes, for real. This, because so many, especially Black women, grew up getting our hair relaxed back to back for like years. Like, there definitely should be a class action lawsuit if there is not already one. But yes, if you want to learn more about this particular lawsuit, Stephanie has a great video. So again, that's linked in the description if you want to learn more.
Now, this came out.
Hello. All right. Okay, so now we're on to our next section of the video, which I'm calling this Nappy Meets Caucasity. And we're going to talk about one thing that white people do have, and that's the audacity. Stay with me, y'all. So I want to start off this section with this concept of do not touch my hair. So in 2016, Solange sung the infamous words, "Don't touch my hair," but this is something that Black women have been speaking on for years. So obviously I have the picture of Solange's song right here. I'm sure y'all are familiar, but something else I thought was interesting is I found this game. So there's this woman who made a video game called Hair Nah, which is basically, as you can see down here, is a travel game about a Black woman who is tired of people touching her hair. So literally, it's like, this is like, so if you can see this picture here, literally the gameplay is you're smacking people's hands away because, as you can see, she is tired and she does not want you to touch her hair. I thought this was funny. This game, I think her online name is Momo Pixel, I believe, but I just thought that was interesting to read about. But yes, there are songs about it. There are even games about it. Something I do not understand, and, you know, feel free to leave in the comments or the chat your own experience with hair touching. But I think I wanted to just kind of briefly go over this because I feel like this idea, like, especially for me, as someone who is a Black girl who grew up in the suburb, who grew up around a lot of, you know, white folks, like, I feel like hair touching is just kind of like a rite of passage in our experience. And I feel like, first of all, not only is it like an invasion of like personal space, but also I feel like hair touching is honestly at its core a form of othering, because it's implying that like Black hair is like almost like a zoo. Like it's a spectacle, like something to like ooh and ah over. Like they kind of, I keep saying like, you know what I mean? It's almost as if they're looking at our hair as if it's something completely foreign. And yes, to some of these people, it might be completely foreign, but I also think this is strange behavior because people do not touch other people's hair. Like, it's just us. And I feel like you can compliment and appreciate our beauty without necessarily forcing yourself onto black bodies. This is something I just never really understood. You know, yeah, I'm trying to think of like something else to say. It's nothing. It's nothing. I just don't get it. Yeah, this is all I want to say. I feel like it's just a weird form. Like hair touching is a weird form of othering, and like I said, I feel like you can compliment and you can just say like, "Hey, oh, your hair looks really nice today," without necessarily having to like force yourself onto black people's bodies and make it like a big deal or like you know, the highlight of the day. I don't know if that makes sense, but I know some folks will get it. Something else I also wanted to talk about is I got a comment on my previous video that I wanted to briefly read, which I also thought made a good point. So I'm going to read the second half, which says, if you're on a person of color, talk frankly with your kids about how others in the community care for and style their hair. You might need to do some research, but then you can save their classmates from having to be the ambassador of their culture. It really sucks to constantly have to explain your existence to your teachers and or classmates. Give them names for basic styles and adornments, and discuss proper behavior around others, like how it's rude to touch others' hair without asking, and that it's rude to ask before you know someone very well. This seems obvious, but kids need these things spelled out for them. And so I thought this was an interesting comment, and the first thing I thought is some adults need these things spelled out for them. But yeah, like I feel like it got me thinking about the importance of also just like having your kids exposed to different people from a young age, so that when they do get to like a corporate job, the first time they're not seeing a black person or the first time they're not seeing an afro is their first job. Like, Miss Ma'am, how are you, 22, or how are you 52, and you have never seen somebody with, non-straight hair before? Like, it's a little bit perplexing. So yes, talk to your damn kids. And also, this is the importance of growing up in like multicultural communities. I feel like this is kind of like the basics. I just wanted to kind of include this in here just because this is a concept, or this is a topic that does come up a lot when we talk about black people's hair, is like, why are we still touching it? So yeah, that's it. Don't touch my hair and talk to your kids. And be proactive about being in multicultural spaces, and you can compliment me without touching me. And also, this is just a side note. This is just for me personally. I feel like just because somebody gives you permission to touch your hair, I still feel like that is strange behavior. Like, even if you ask, it's like the idea that you wouldn't ask anybody else to touch your hair, but because, I'm black or I have, natural hair, it's like all of a sudden you feel like this right to touch it. And I feel like a better question would be like, people need to evaluate where this desire to touch comes from, truly, deep down inside. But that's my perspective. I'm almost out of my water. Okay, but yes, that is my section on don't touch my hair. Another topic I wanted to talk about when it comes to black hair and caucasity is also, I was originally going to call this cultural appropriation, but I think a better word would be robbery. And so I'm sure some of you have already seen this or remember this happening, but in 2018, Kim Kardashian wore Fulani braids and then credited them to actress Bo Derek, who wore a similar hairstyle in her 1979 film titled 10. So Kim Kardashian referred to the style as Bo Derek braids and faced a lot of backlash from the black community, rightfully so. And this became a whole headline and a whole thing and a whole conversation about cultural appropriation, who deserves to, like, if you're not a black person, should you really be wearing black hairstyles? But honestly, the topic that I want to talk about, more than the topic of should non-black people be wearing, like braids and dreadlocks and black styles, my bigger issue right here is the fact that you not only wore the style, but you then proceed to credit it to a white woman. And I just want to kind of draw this parallels of, I feel like the colonizing implications of white people giving giving white people the credit for black labor. I feel like it's giving Christopher Columbus, it's giving colonization. And I feel like I see this pattern happen a lot. Like this example is obviously happening between celebrities, but I see this a lot happening even on TikTok. Like black people create these trendy dances. They create basically most of the slang that goes viral on TikTok that is generally associated with Gen Z culture. Actually, Khalil Green, he calls himself the Gen Z historian. He's a great TikTok creator y'all should follow. He's also on, Instagram. But he has a series basically called How Everything on This App Basically Started with Black People. Is great. So he basically breaks down how a lot of things that are generally called Gen Z culture is usually a whitewashed and watered down version of Black American culture that is then repackaged as this is just what the young people say and do. Which Riz is another great example. I actually did not know that Riz started with Kai Cenat, the streamer. Am I saying his name correctly? Cenat. BS. The robbery comes in many forms, and I just had this example because it relates to black hair. But I just wanted to talk about it because, yeah, I feel like there's no other way to say it than it's just robbery. Like, I feel like it's just giving, it's giving colonization, And I feel like the real reason I have a problem with this is that the Kardashians continue, like, they have a pattern of behavior that continues to benefit and praise them, usually at the expense of black people. And again, I feel like this is another parallel that happens to even things that happen on TikTok and on social media. It's like black people make these trending phrases and trending things, but they're never the ones who ever benefit or get nearly as much of the recognition for such, for the things that they not only create, but popularized. Even if we want to go back to like the Vine days, do you remember when like everybody was saying on fleek? Like, and like brands were putting like making t-shirts that said, on fleek, eyebrows on fleek, and everybody else was getting popular off of these things. And the woman who actually created the phrase on fleek was not getting any of this recognition or any of the she wasn't getting the recognition for something that you create. Like, I feel like it's really not that difficult. Like, to give credit where credit is due is really not that complicated. But I feel like people don't get that. So whether it's happening on things like social media, like the word Riz, or back in Divine Days, on fleek, or nah, that's a time portal for y'all. Just really think about the communities that it's affecting and really the colonizing implications of giving white people the credit for black labor. That's what I have to say about that. Oof, these two, Woo Child, these celebrities with cornrows. I'm so tired. Yes, for real. The braids on them. Oh wait, hold on. There's like the little heart thing is in the middle of your message. The little braids on them should be called Fulani braids. Yes. So that leads me to my next slide, JJ, which is the real origin of Fulani braids. So this is an excerpt from okafrica.com. The article is called A Regional Walk Through the History of African Hair Braiding. So this reads, West Africa boasts an abundance of hair braiding styles, many of which have influenced global black culture and trends for decades. The Fula people, whose 30 million strong population exists across West Africa, gifted the world with Fulani braids. Traditionally, the style called for 5 long braids fashioned into loops or left to hang to frame the face, with a coiffeur, I hope I'm saying that right, braided into the center of the head. Over time, and with the modernization and globalization of communities, however, the braids now manifest in different ways. Fulani tribeswomen would adorn their braids with silver or gold coins, beads, and cowrie shells, sometimes symbolizing wealth status or marital status. So, a brief history on the real origin of Fulani braids. So, with that being said, let's please put some respect on Black culture. These are some pictures of, Black people wearing Fulani braids. We have Rihanna. I don't remember what this event this was, but hers looking stunning. And I don't know who this is on the left. I just looked up Fulani braids. So shout out to whoever this is, Edith Braids. Yes, and I even like the little, what is it called? Coiffer. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I apologize. In the center. So I like that, the piece in the center. So this is how Fulani braids really should be done. And it really is not that hard to give credit where credit is due. It is not that difficult. All right, y'all, I'm officially out of water. I might have to do a brief break. I think I'll do it before part 3. But okay, the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about is also this idea of taking up space. So I feel like a lot of our conversations when it comes to Black hair, it's this idea of physically taking up space, but also metaphorically taking up space as well. I feel like taking up space really just means being able to be in a room, and be seen, be heard, and just be able to be there because you're supposed to be there, not having systems and things set in place. And that is difficult when there are systems and structural things set in place that often serve as reminders that Blackness, Black folk, you are kind of, the afterthought. Now, that should be that way, but yeah, I feel like the conversations about hair, I feel like a lot of the times are also conversations about taking up space. And so I found this clip on Instagram from this author who I love, Austin Channing Brown. She has a phenomenal book, which I definitely recommend to read, especially if you grew up Black in the suburbs, or if you grew up Black in a lot of Christian spaces and organizations. I think her book is a really great read, but I also think a lot of people could benefit from it. I don't think just because you're in those two demographics that you're the only people that can read it. But yes, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness is a fantastic book, and it's not too long. There's also an audiobook version, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. But Austin Channing Brown had this great interview. She actually released a children's version of her book, the one I just talked about. And they did an interview, and a brief part of it talked about Black hair, or talked about just the idea of hair taking up space. So let me pull this up. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure this don't expose something it's not supposed to. Okay, that's good. All right, can y'all hear this?
White girl's hair was everywhere. It was everywhere, Tracy.
It was an Instagram video from Austin.
Nerves, because
here we go. Yeah, okay.
White girl's hair was everywhere. It was everywhere, Tracy. It was on the desk. It was in the water fountains. It was on the bathroom counter. It was on the lunch table. It was in the seat. Like, it was everywhere.
And then even when it was on their heads, it's still in your face and on your desk.
Like, on my desk, like your whole ponytail, the whole damn ponytail. Like, and I realize you can't feel that. I'm sure you can't, but it still bothers me. Could you just like turn around? Could you do like one of these? Could you do one of these to make sure it's in your personal space?
And also the lack of self-awareness where they don't do that anyway. So used to being like, wherever you go, you think you're in your living room and you're not, Tracy. I go outside and if I'm sitting down someplace and somebody comes to sit next to me, oh, sorry,
you better preach.
I'm packing up everything that I have. I'm like moving around. You got enough room? You got enough space? You got enough space?
Everybody okay? Can I make myself smaller?
Right. Can I possibly disappear? Does anybody have a magic wand? I would love to just poof and get out of your face and not be a burden. And that is a thing that they did not have, do not have. Like, I feel like we use the phrase take up space so often that it doesn't mean a whole lot. But no, white people are out here not
this is how I learned
to,
No. This is how I learned about whiteness taking up space.
The ponytail?
The ponytail. It was everywhere, and they didn't care. They actually didn't care if they swung around and hit you in the face with a ponytail. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God. And that, like, to this day is triggering for me. Like, recently, maybe like within the past year, I'm out at a cute little Brooklyn restaurant with my friends, probably having brunch or something, you know, in gentrified Brooklyn. And, you know, it's just this woman, and she's just having fun with it, right? She's just, and I'm just like, it was one of those situations where I turned to my friend first. I was like, how does she not know? How she don't see my face? You know, like, and I let it happen. So I could just be like, look at this. Can you believe it? Like, it still happens. I had to say something. And then you have to do the whole, okay, I'm a Black girl. Let me police my tone. I don't want her to start crying because then I might go to jail or worse. All over because you don't know how to control your ponytail.
Girl, it'd be a lot.
So much. It's a lot. I'm so glad that you wrote this book because because I feel like there are things and instances and stories like these that, like, on the surface are like small, like, oh, somebody hit you in the face with a ponytail, but it's just like it's levels, layers, and they're all connected to a trauma somewhere.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. It explains why you are now tired. Right? You're tired
all the time.
Ponytails got on my.
Okay, y'all. So that was the clip. So yes. I just thought that was funny. Bree says, this just brought back so many memories, LOL, for real. And then Fudgy says, no ma'am, if I'm in public seating, I'm gonna spread. Don't sit next to me. Yes, that is the energy we should be coming into. We all need to embrace our inner Fudgy. But yeah, I just thought that this conversation was really interesting because it brings up this idea of like taking up space and how hair takes up space and how white people often, you know, walk into spaces like Austin said, like they in their living room, like they're supposed to be here, you know, not necessarily having awareness of how their space, of how much space they're taking up, you know. And so that kind of reminded me of, again, bringing this back to the whole hair conversation of even things like segregation in the stores. I feel like whether we're shrinking the size of our hair or like the literal amount of space we take up in a room, I feel like society tends to have many reminders to keep Blackness in this small box, which even can be seen in like the beauty aisles in stores. Like the fact that it was once called ethnic hair care, multicultural hair care, textured hair care, whatever the corner is in the store, white people have tons of aisles of beauty products, of hair options, you know. Even if we're not talking about hair, even if we're talking about foundation, like these brands be having 50 shades of beige, you know, but they don't have, you know, but 3 colors for Black skin tones. It's like the same thing with hair care products, you know. How do we have infinite options for everybody else, but we have the dirty, dusty, dark corner of ethnic hair care for us? You know, it's again another example of this taking up space things. So yes. And this also kind of reminds me of this conversation that happened, I believe it was 2021. I don't remember. But do y'all remember this? I actually learned about this from Bree. So Bree, she does social commentary videos. She did a video about the Miel Organics situation. And child, this was a roller coaster. This is, again, as you can see by the text, another example of robbery at its finest. So I'm gonna give you a brief recap. So as you can see from the title, oh, it happened 2023. Okay, so I'm completely wrong. With all these dates. But as you can see by this this headline, Black women are calling white women out for snatching up all the Miel Organics rosemary oil. So this happened at the beginning of 2023, where So let me just give a brief background. So Miel Organics is a Black-owned hair care brand that specializes in what the stores will call ethnic hair care. The products were meant to give Black people a healthier and more natural solution to hair care that's also in an affordable price range. And so that was their whole big thing, is like Miel, or actually I think it's supposed to be pronounced Mayel. Yeah, actually, I was watching an ad, a video on Mayel's website, and they were pronouncing it Mayel. So I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. So Mayel, the Black hair care brand, who specializes in, again, organic and affordable options for Black people, has this popular product called the Rosemary Mint Scalp Oil. And at the beginning of 2023, the white woman on the left, I think her name is Alex Earl, if I'm not mistaken, but please correct me if I'm wrong. She was doing like some sort of TikTok favorites video, and she had briefly mentioned that this Mayel rosemary oil had helped her hair grow tremendously. And TikTok, doing as TikTok does, the white women were flocking to the shelves to get their hands on the Mayel rosemary oil. And of course, not many people really did research that this was a Black hair care brand meant to cater towards Black hair. And there were tons of tutorials that were going up on TikTok of how to use this rosemary oil. A lot of women even were a lot of these white women were complaining how this oil is too thick. And so they were like diluting it with water. Again, people not doing research that this oil was not created for your texture of hair. But the whole conversation was like, every time you search on TikTok for this viral hair oil, you would just see tons of seas of white people reviewing this product. Even on Amazon, there was like a period where there were all these negative reviews of all these white women losing hair because they were using this hair oil that was not created for their hair. They were like, my hair is so greasy after using this oil. Like, just things like that. They were losing hair in, the thousands. So, I'm sorry, I just read JD's message. I remember hearing about that. Columbusing at its finest, for real. The Mayel switch up, I remember. Yes, for real. So yes, that's the brief synopsis of the situation. The white women were, snatching up all this Black hair care brand just because they saw some TikToks. They, of course, did no research on the product. And a bunch of them were, leaving these negative reviews of how their hair was falling out in, droves. And so it kind of created this kind of conversation of like, at least for me, the conversation that I got from this is, again, this idea of like taking up space. And somebody brought this up, and I can't find the exact TikTok, but somebody brought this up, is the fact that these white women, to go to buy this product, the Mayel hair oil, they have to either go to the website, they need to go to Amazon, or they need to go to the store. So how is it that all three of those places, say you go into the store, you see Mayel next to Shea Moisture, African Pride, As I Am, Cantu, you see all of these hair products that say coily and textured. You're in the section that literally says ethnic hair because, we still got segregated, hair aisles. And then you decide that you are in this section, that this is the product that I'm going to get because TikTok told me to get it, without doing any like critical thinking skills of like, this product is next to all the other curly and textured hair products. This is in the ethnic textured hair aisle. I'm still going to buy this. Like that in and of itself, I feel like is, again, I don't understand how that happens. Or even if you say you bought it off Amazon or you bought it off the Mayel website, like there are Black women in the marketing. Like the whole webpage I actually checked before putting together this presentation. If you search Mayel rosemary hair oil, all of the marketing pictures are Black people. If you go to the website, all of the promotional marketing pictures are Black people. So the fact that these white people, despite having to either go to the ethnic hair aisle or go to Amazon, see this oil and continue to buy it and snatch it up and use it, even though and leave bad reviews, even though it was never created for your hair, like, I feel like, again, it's this conversation of, like, taking up space, you know? I don't know if this is coming across. It's just the idea of, like, just taking up space. Like, Black products, like, it's not like, and I think that's actually the larger conversation, is that, like, Black people, like, it's not like we have infinite products like white people. And maybe that's a reason. Maybe white people are used to having infinite options. And so, like, if they're in the section near Cantu and African Pride, like, they're like, oh, like, it doesn't cross their mind that the Black people only have this small section while they have aisles, you know? And I think another, there's a great video that this TikTok creator, Brittany Rose, made on the situation. So I'm actually gonna mute it because there's, like, copyrighted music in the background and I just don't want this to, you know, risk this video getting flagged. So I'll kind of, like, briefly talk about it as I just let it play. But basically, this, we can see on TikTok, she's scrolling through and you see how you search Mayel hair oil and you basically, the top results are all white people talking about either how it works or how, you know, their hair is falling out in droves, because this is for textured and coily hair. She then goes through the hair care aisle for everybody else, you know, the non-ethnic and textured, and talks about how they have all these options for their hair, but they still continue to use the one particularly created for Black women. And then she goes and highlights some of the particular oils that are created, again, for thinner and finer and straighter hair, like oils that you could use if you want to use a hair oil that aren't necessarily, you know, designed for curly hair, and especially when you don't even have curly hair. Because I guess sometimes white people use like, you know, Black hair products if they have curly hair. We're not talking about that. Like, the people that are complaining and make all these TikToks are these straight-haired white women who just want hair growth and, you know, are following a TikTok trend. So these are some other options of, like, you know, hair oils that they could use. Oh, this one was funny. I wish I could play this clip. But basically, like, this lady, she pronounced Mayel like Mayeli. And then Brittany on her voiceover was like, girl, you can't even pronounce it like, let alone use it right. I wish I could play the audio. But yeah, basically it's, we hear the bad reviews, yes, of everybody leaving bad reviews, and, what is it called? Everybody losing their hair. And yeah, so that's basically the TikTok. That's basically what happened. And the fact that this product was basically sold out, and Black people who actually wanted to review the product, you know, for the target demographic that this product was created for, couldn't even get their hands on it. So again, like JJ said in the chat, very much giving Columbus. It's Columbusing at its finest, colonizing at its finest. And I feel like this just shows another example of, again, like, Black or hair, and, like, the importance of Black hair just being able to take up space, you know, and not have it be, and not have our products be snatched or stolen from us, you know. And yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, what else I want to say, but I feel like y'all are getting it, right? It's like, Black women, we deserve to take up space too. You know, not everything has to be for you, you know? We deserve more than one section of a hair care aisle, basically. And there's also another section, or there was another video I saw, I forget what it was called, but, or I saw a comment. I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard in Canada, like, you had to go to, like, a different hair store to even get your hands on Black hair products. I don't know if that's true, but I saw a comment about that. I wonder if that's true. But yeah, we deserve more as Black women, as Black people, not just women, but people. We deserve more than, you know, the small, dirty, ethnic hair aisle. We deserve to take up space. And I feel like, again, whiteness has to be aware of the space that they are taking up, you know? society tends to have a lot of reminders to keep Blackness in this small box. And so it's important that we not only take up the space, but we occupy it because, like we're supposed to be there, essentially. So yes, that is section 2. I have one more section. I've actually gone way longer than I expected. I expected this to be like an hour stream. Girl, I'm passionate. Who's still here? Thank you for being here. For those of y'all who are still here. Oh, I'm out of water. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run an ad, and I'm going to get water. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the respectability of black hair. But yes, thank you all for staying with me so far. I will be back shortly. Oh, the sun's setting. It's getting dark. All right. All right, welcome back, you guys. Thank you again for sitting through the ads. I appreciate that. Hopefully I got ads. I hope so. Sometimes YouTube, be playing games. But yes. Fudgy says respectability issues can be a whole stream by itself, by the way. For real, it really can be. So I just have a couple more examples because I feel like this is another important topic when it comes to conversations about black hair. And again, why representation is so important, why education is so important, but most importantly, why respectability is so important. So we kind of in the previous section talked about, taking up space and how sometimes other people, like white people from other cultures, aren't aware of how much space they're taking up or how they can be an invasion of black spaces. But I feel like another layer that is equally as important is this idea of respectability, or as I put on this slide, the lack thereof. And why a lot of these issues that come up, or a lot of the underlying theme of topics about natural hair, really comes down to respectability. Not only just seeing black hair as beautiful, but also just respecting black hair as enough. The reason why there's discrimination happening is because we see black hair as lesser than it actually, we see, because society has taught us to see black hair as lesser than, when that's not true. A lot of these myths about black hair are not based on fact. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. And this is also the section where I'm going to delve into even how anti-Blackness can permeate into respectability for Black hair. So we'll start off with some definitions. So this is just the Google definition. Respectability means the state or quality of being proper, correct, and socially acceptable. Another definition is that the state or quality of being accepted as valid or important within a particular field. So I think it's important to first establish definitions of this is what respectability is. I also went onto, I believe, Merriam-Webster, one of the dictionary websites, and I looked up synonyms and similar words. And I think it's really interesting. Like, look at these synonyms, and the brighter colored they are is the more close to respectability those words are, if that makes sense. And so I think it's interesting. So respectability is associated with morality, decency, virtue, conscientiousness, nobility, fairness, justice, right-mindedness, honor, honesty, uprightness. So these are things that are associated with respectability. So you can kind of be thinking about this in the back of your mind. And on the same page, they had a list of antonyms and near antonyms. And you can see the things that are the opposite of respectability. So when somebody you don't deem as respectable can fall under one of these kind of categories. Things like degradation, lowness, dishonor, perversion, disgrace, looseness, criminality, wretchedness, dishonesty, corruptness. And I also thought it was interesting how there are way more near antonyms and antonyms than there are similar words. And this is just from one dictionary website, but I just thought that was an interesting observation, the differences of the lists. And last but not least, we're going to give a definition for respectability politics for those of you who are not familiar. So respectability politics is a set of beliefs holding that conformity to prescribed mainstream standards of appearance and behavior will protect a person who is a part of a marginalized group, especially a Black person, from prejudices and systemic injustices. Black respectability politics embraces the illusion of a level economic playing field. Respectability politics places the blame on groups already hindered by discrimination. I think this is a fantastic definition, and I believe this is from Merriam-Webster, if I'm not mistaken. Dictionary.com. So the antonyms and synonyms are Merriam-Webster. Respectability politics definition is dictionary.com. I think that is a great definition. No notes. All right, so the first example of respectability politics I want to talk about is the one and only. I know I'm bringing back wonderful memories for you guys. So brief, what is it called? No, Fudgy said, let me go get my bonnet. Listen, girl, we get into that. But the first example I wanted to give is of the 2015 Academy Awards, and this entertainment reporter, Juliana Rancic. So the woman on the right is Juliana Rancic. She is an Italian-American entertainment reporter and TV personality. And on a segment on her show, I forget what the show was actually called, they were covering fashion from the 2015 Oscars. And Juliana Rancic made a particular comment of Zendaya's dreadlocks, looked like she smelled like weed or patchouli oil. She just did not say she was saying very racist and stereotypical things that this white woman associated with dreadlocks. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure Zendaya was like a late teenager or something. Like, my guess is maybe 18, 19. I don't know. I didn't do the math, but yes. So she said these things. It obviously did not go over very well. And the reason I really wanted to bring up this example in particular is because Zendaya ended up saying later in an interview that the reason she wore dreadlocks on the red carpet is because not only was this a significant stage, like, people look at the Academy Awards as like this really, prestigious Hollywood event. And for somebody to wear a style that is often associated with the opposite of that, not that it actually is, but because society has seen dreadlocks as something that's like hippie-ish, something that's like dirty, it was making a statement that Black people and our hair and our styles native to our cultures is good enough as is. Our hair is formal as is. And for Juliana Rancic to kind of make this very ignorant comment that Zendaya looked like she smelled like weed and patchouli oil simply because she had dreadlocks was giving racism, you know? The internalized racism was popping out. She did issue an apology, and so that was a thing. Thought I should mention that there. But I think this brings up an interesting topic because not too far before this Oscars, this 2015 Oscar situation, Juliana Rancic actually praised Kylie Jenner for wearing dreadlocks. Apparently she had a situation, not to bring up the Kardashians again, but apparently Kylie Jenner had an era where she was wearing dreadlocks and Juliana Rancic loved that. But when Zendaya was wearing dreadlocks, she looked like she smelled like weed and patchouli oil. So it kind of comes down to this idea of like, we like blackness, but just not on Black people. And again, it boils down to this issue of respectability, and think of like those synonyms and antonyms we were looking at earlier, the types of things that are associated with things we find respectable, but more importantly, whom do we find these things respectable on? Is it really not presentable, or is she just Black? Ooh, this was messy. I loved how Zendaya read her for filth. It was Fashion Police, by the way. Yeah, so Fashion Police. Was that on the E! Network? Am I mistaking that? That might not be correct. But yeah, so that was the show. She was only... Oh my god. What? The little like heart thing is like blocking your message. She was... Oh, she was, wait. I'm sorry. What'd you say, Amy? Can you type that one more time? Sorry, the little thing is like blocking your message. But hello, welcome on into the stream. Yes, so I feel like this kind of leads me to my next topic I want to talk about, which is on presentability and what that means. Fudgy said not too long ago that they were going to grab their bonnet real quick. And that leads me to my next topic. Which I'm calling, is she really unpresentable, or is she just Black? So I know you're probably wondering, Asmara, why are you showing us this time capsule? I actually had kind of fun putting this together. Not lying, I literally had this outfit to the left, back in 2013, 2014 when these things were trending. But one of the common threads that I feel like was a staple piece of this time period was none other than the messy bun. I also felt like this Zoella video, I'm pretty sure this is Zoella, I hope I'm right, was very indicative of this period. But trust me, y'all, I'm going somewhere. So yes, the messy bun, as we can see in various parts of this collage, was a very staple piece of, I would say, this time period. It was something very trendy. But I feel like this thing was not trendy for all people, might I add. So I want to kind of bring up this idea that on white women, messy buns are kind of seen as like, ooh, I don't have time to like wash my hair right now. I'm just going to put my hair up in a messy bun. A messy bun is a style. And there's definitely a double standard of what is considered presentable when you are Black versus when you are not Black. And it reminded me of the story of Monique. This again happened 2021. So this was summer 2021. I'm gonna give a brief synopsis. Basically, Monique, the comedian, the actress, went on her social media, I think it might have been Instagram, in her bathrobe, might I add, talking about how she was having an issue with Black women deciding to wear pajamas, bonnets, slippers, and what else did she say? Blankets in the airport, in grocery stores. And And basically, I'm not gonna play the whole clip because it was kind of long, but you can look it up if you want to. There's this her video basically caused this whole discussion of respectability politics and what does being presentable mean as a black woman? She was particularly talking about black women in her video and was saying that when black women go in public, and she was talking about things like airports and grocery stores. Like, we're not talking about job interviews. We're not talking about work in school. Like, we're talking about, like, airports. Like, we're running errands. Like, we're not talking about things where that type of attire would not be acceptable. But she wanted this whole conversation, again, in her bathrobe, talking about how it looks like when black women wear bonnets, and pajamas, or more casual attire, it looks like they don't care about their appearance. It looks like they don't have pride in who they are. And it kind of created this whole conversation, especially in the black community and in black spaces, about what it means to look presentable as a black person, and especially as a black woman. And is this even possible? Like we talked about in the previous slide, like not too many years prior, like 2014, well, 10 years ago. Ooh, that's a decade. But the messy bun style was very popularized in that period, and was even seen as like an acceptable style even to this day. People put their hair up, in messy buns if they're going to go run a quick errand or go to the airport. Like, we're not going to job interviews looking like that. But so why is there a double standard for black women, like wearing their bonnet in, again, a airport, or what's the word, like a grocery store, like an errand kind of situation? So I hope I'm explaining this well. But I actually remembered there was I wanted to kind of expand on this and kind of just pose that question and put that out there, that there is definitely a double standard and a different expectation when it comes to being presentable or respectable as a black person. And so I felt like this particular situation definitely exemplified that. There's a podcast that I love listening to. It's called Here's the Thing, with Kev on Stage and That Chick Angel. Me and Brie actually saw them in person not too long ago. But I just remembered Angel had this really great clip when it came to this whole conversation about black women and respectability. And I feel like it just summarized like what I would have said in response to this idea of what it means to be presentable as a black woman. And so I'm just gonna play this, and yeah, that's it. I'm gonna play it and then we can discuss.
And I'm still very perplexed. It's not like we don't understand black women's hair. Yeah. People understand we're not white women. We can't do, a lot of us, even if we have a la natural hair, like where there's nothing on it, we can't do the wake up, shake our hair out, and our hair look what is considered presentable, because then you got that whole definition. And then at the same time, for instance, for me, when I was going through my bout of alopecia, I had to wear a head covering or I was going to be showing bald spots left and right. So for me, it was like, I'd rather obviously be in a bonnet than to be worried about, okay, is my wig on straight? Is this on right? So to even think that you have the right to judge a woman just because she's not dressed how you deem to be respectful is so off base. And just because people give you the fake title of auntie does not mean that you now have the free reign to judge us based off of appearances. This is the same thing. This is the reason why Black people are getting shot in the street by folk, is based off of appearance, not knowing any. And it doesn't matter. We could be in a suit. Mm-hmm. We could be in high heels, red bottoms. They still won't come up with a reason for why we don't fit where we're at. And so to just perpetuate it is for Monique, a Black woman, someone that even in her darkest hours, we have come to bat for. when she was getting dragged, we try not to drag her as hard as she might have been getting dragged by other people, to then be like, you know, you don't look like you respect yourself. It's just like, ma'am, some people thought you sounded crazy when you were saying boycott Netflix, but we still here with you. So like, Miss Ma'am, sit down. If you don't want to wear a bonnet, don't wear a bonnet. If you feel like it's unruly to wear in public, don't wear it, obviously. Just like I'm not about to have my whole entire booty cheeks out while I'm at the airport. But if another woman who loves her body decides to have some booty meat out at the bottom, that's up to her. That is up to her.
Booty meat.
So yes, Angel, she knows how to communicate her points, and she's funny and she's witty. But something I really liked that she mentioned in the clip is that it doesn't really necessarily matter what we're wearing. Like, as a Black person, like, there were always going to be, like, depending on the person's intentions, like, they're always going to find something wrong with, like, how we look or how we're dressed, you know, like, and I like how she made that comparison of like, when we're like, how appearance and judging based off appearance and appearance alone, how that is such a harmful stereotype to perpetuate, you know, because it doesn't matter as a Black person. Like, we have seen so many examples in the news of Black people like doing either everything right or doing everything wrong, and they were still going to find a reason to call us unpresentable, or to call us, you know, to basically not view us as respectable, to see us as criminal. Like she said, we could be wearing red bottoms, or you could be wearing a bonnet, and if you already see Black people in that way, that's not going to change just because of what we wear, you know. So I thought that was a good point. Fudgy says, long heels, red bottoms. I was bumping Trina the other day. The Comfian says, I personally think bonnets are different from scarves we wear as styles. Also, a messy bun for 4C hair is usually rejected versus messy buns on other hair types. For real. And that's kind of like the point I was making before, is like, how come some messy or like lazy styles, quote unquote, like are acceptable on some people, but not y'all, you know? The texturism is texturisming. I wouldn't equate bonnets to messy bun because it's sleepwear. Yeah, so I know it's not like an equal comparison, but it was kind of like the closest thing I could kind of like think of, where it's like you would think of it as not being, I don't know what the word is. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but yeah, I know bonnets are definitely different because, of course, you know, it's a protective thing. It's, you know, it's to protect your hair. And who knows what your hair could be looking like underneath, you know? Like, not everybody wears a bonnet necessarily because they didn't do their hair. Sometimes they're trying to protect a style. You got, you know, rollers or whatever you doing up in your hair. Or like Angel said in the clip, in her full clip, she actually makes a lot of good points of like, even with her struggling with alopecia, like, you know, there's a lot of different reasons for something like a bonnet, you know? So I don't know if that's even making sense, but yeah, I think what I'm trying to say, though, is, like, I made the messy bun to bonnet comparison is, it's like, you wouldn't show up into a job interview in a messy bun. Same thing that you wouldn't show up to, like, you know, a job interview in a bonnet, you know? So it's like, yeah, I don't know if it makes sense. The idea of bonnets, that's the issue. I have a satin-lined tam that looks just like a bonnet, but it's a hat. Yes, I wore it out over my natural hair. At this point, I don't care if other Black women wear bonnets in public, but I personally wouldn't. Yeah, so that's the thing that that's another thing I was gonna say about also what Angel said in her point, which was, You don't have to wear a bonnet if you don't want to. Like, I'm not going to be out here doing that, but I also am not out here making public videos telling Black women how they should show up in the world, especially when there's already so much criticism and scrutiny and opinions about Black women when it comes to respectability. And I really feel like that's what it boils down to, is like the way we show up and if we are respectable enough to be showing up in that way, you know? Look up a Jamaican Tams. Okay, I haven't heard of that. I'll look it up later. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But okay, another thing I wanted to talk about, and we're almost done here. Yeah, I did not think the stream would be this long. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, and the Comfy Inn kind of alluded to it earlier, which is like the texture of your hair also determines whether or not people see you as such. And so the last media example that we're going to be talking about today is another situation that happened on TikTok.
And
oh yes, so texturism. And the last example I have is a situation that happened on TikTok that has to do with texturism. But as a brief background, so for those of you who don't know the hair texture chart, here's some basics, and if you know, of varying curl patterns. And I honestly think that texturism is another form of white supremacy. Like, people who see coily and kinkier textures of natural hair as either less attractive or less professional or less put together, that is just another way of upholding a colonialist mindset. You know? So texturism is the discrimination against people who have tighter coils of hair. So people who would be considered like in the 3s or the 4s, particularly the 4s. And so, yeah, it creates discrimination not only in schools, but also like in the workplace. Like we talked about what is it? Oh my gosh, I have no idea what I was just about to say. I just lost my thought. But anyways, texturism, yes, is not good. It's just another way of upholding like more European, looser curl patterns as better than tighter curl patterns. And there's also an issue with, and this is kind of like one of the controversies with the natural hair community, which we'll not talk about completely, but one of the main controversies is like the idea that curly natural hair only looks one way, when there are many different curl patterns, and just because you use 3 products does not mean your hair is all going to turn out the same way. So yeah, texturism is just the favoring of looser European, more like curl patterns than tighter, more black curl patterns. Basically, another form of anti-blackness, another form of white supremacy, if you ask me. Oops. So yes, the last example I wanted to give, to kind of talk a little bit about texturism, is that there was a situation on TikTok that happened, when was this? I believe 2022. And it came out of, there's this whole conversation that happened about this girl, who, she makes very I think her TikTok was very fun. It was very lighthearted. It was never supposed to, like, her TikToks are never like, what am I trying to say? Like her TikTok, okay, so this, let me just back up. So this girl, she goes by the name of Lip Gloss. She did like a get ready with me, a very casual, lifestyle type of TikTok. And she ended up making this just brief, flippant comment saying that I can only pull white boys with this hair, but I'm not mad. And I put this little emoji here, not to like make fun of her. I hope this doesn't look like I'm making fun of her, but like I put this emoji here to show that she meant this in a very casual way. And if you read into the subtext, if you are a part of, the Black hair dialogue, something that is generally known is that not all the time do okay, I don't want this to come off as like all black men, because that's not the case. That's not what I want this to be. But one of the subtext of that comment that became a larger conversation is whether or not other people in the black community see shorter and kinkier hair textures as just as beautiful as we said, like looser curl patterns. And so she made this little like flippant remark, like literally it was a get ready with me, and this little remark literally was like 2 seconds of her entire video, where he said, I can only pull white boys with this hair, but I'm not mad. And it became a whole thing on TikTok. It's actually, the situation ended being pretty sad. Like, she basically got bullied off of the internet. I went to look, and she doesn't post anymore. And a lot of that is in result to all of the awful and terrible things that people were saying about her, after just making this, you know, silly little comment of something that was just her experience. Like, she's literally just speaking on her experience, but really it became a larger conversation on texturism. So she actually lip gloss ended up writing a opinion piece for Refinery 29, and it's linked in the description. I think it's really interesting, and it's just a really interesting look on texturism, and so I definitely recommend checking it out. But I'm going to read some excerpts from her article. So it says, the things that you can do or say on social media as a dark-skinned black girl are very, very limited. When it comes to my content on my TikTok page, lip gloss, where I now have over 1.1 million followers, I definitely shifted my videos to where I say much less. I'll use humor to express what I'm really trying to say. Because when black girls share their experiences of insecurity and anxiety, especially anxiety, they're not always met with compassion. You get torn to pieces. This became clear when I made TikTok videos about my hair. In a series of vlogs, I started to wearing my hair in its most natural state, tightly coiled because of shrinkage, not stretched, with no twist outs, no laid edges, or protective styles, no manipulation, just as is. I talked about how I was exploring the idea of living in my natural state, especially when there's shrinkage and my hair looks short. Oh my gosh. I keep forgetting that I have links here. I explained how I resented chasing femicization. I can't say that word, but y'all can read. In the way that I dress just to feel attractive and not masculine. And I challenged my own fears of feeling less desirable and attractive wearing my hair this way. As I say in my video, the people who choose to only uplift black women in wigs and makeup are really doing a disservice. They don't care about your well-being. They don't care about what that's going to do to your self-confidence, what it's going to do to your edges, what it's going to do to you as a person. I had to let those people go. I can't believe how hard they make it in society for black women to love their natural self. People of other races will be washing their faces and just leave the house, but God forbid a black girl does the same thing. The fact that I'm considered a leader for wearing my hair in this way is actually really sad. Really? Me just existing in my natural state is actually very regular and shouldn't be a big deal. After I posted my videos, especially when I made a flippant comment that I can only pull white boys with my natural hair, I did get a lot of hate from people on the internet who decided to pick apart my looks. They were angry that I was comfortable with another demographic finding me attractive. As if to say, you're a piece of shit, but you're my piece of shit. One even went to the trouble of creating a fake dating profile with my pictures to prove that black men still find me desirable with my hair this way, in what he described as an experiment. And that was crazy. Like, people really just be doing the most. What I want to say to the people who are angry is you should have never felt threatened by my videos. The only thing I did with that video was free myself from your validation, and freed a bunch of people who watched that video from the validation of people who think like that. How do you think it feels to know that people don't find me attractive in my natural hair? Do you understand how painful that is? And she later goes on in the article to kind of talk about acceptance and embracing just how she looks naturally, you know, without necessarily always having to manipulate your hair, stretch your hair, lay your edges, you know, be in a wig and a full face beat, you know, like she talks about just her journey with that. And so I definitely recommend reading more about it. I think it's a really interesting take. But yeah, I just wanted to read those excerpts so you kind of get an idea of what the situation was about. But yeah, this was a whole conversation. Anti-black preferences within black men can be a whole nother stream too, but let's not confuse white men's interest with good intent. Yeah, she looks cute doing the peace sign. She's gorgeous. Yes. So it's really sad that like literally like the response basically had people bully her off the internet, which I just think is really sad. But yeah, and there was a bunch of like comments like of people even who resonated with her in this idea of texturism within the black community. Like there's this one comment that says she wasn't even lying. You know how many times I've been told I need my head done by black people because I'm wearing it natural, which again, this also kind of provide this kind of ties into respectability and what it means to be presentable. This other person says the joke's never serious until we make them. Which I thought was funny. Like, as in texturism jokes are never funny until the people who are experiencing it, you know, make those comments. So I just wanted to read those comments of some people who are also, who understand what she said. You know, the people who are not the trolls making fake dating profiles without somebody's will or without somebody's consent. So this leads me to my final point, which is my brief PSA that black people can also feed into anti-blackness. And so, okay, this is one video about the Crown Act or about like hair discrimination that I didn't want to link because I don't love this video. But there's a particular part that talks about kind of like, that shows how even with anti-black policies such as discriminating against people with natural hairstyles, how that can also come from sometimes the black community. And so I'm going to just play a couple excerpts about that.
We have a story from that often explosive nexus between the personal and the political. It involves hair, specifically the hairstyles of young African Americans and the controversial decision made by one school district that fed into a heated national debate. Here's ABC's Deborah Roberts.
As 15-year-old Ashanti Scott knows, hair can say so much about us. A cheerleader at Butler High in Louisville, Kentucky, she proudly wears hers in its natural, tightly curled state. So she was stunned this year when she saw her school's new dress code policy.
It was the hair, and I noticed that as you kept reading, it just added more and more hairstyles that were natural and mostly worn by black people.
Did it feel personal to you?
It felt very personal to me because I've worn those hairstyles.
It was almost like an attack on me and who I am and my culture.
Ashanti and mom Attica soon became part of a hot national debate around the country about perceptions involving natural hair. What offended the Scotts is this line in the new policy, banning dreadlocks, twists, afros longer than 2 inches, and cornrows, which is even misspelled.
Yo, so this is one reason I wanted to include this clip is the fact that, bro, so first of all, you had the audacity to ban the black hairstyles, but then you got the audacity to not even know how they spelled. Like, they spell cornrows, cornrows, like, the true Caucasity. Anyways.
Attica, an outspoken and newly elected Kentucky state legislator, immediately called her daughter's school. But it was after hours, so she did what many of us do when frustrated. Turned to social media. On Twitter, she wrote, "So my daughter had registration today, and let's just say she's not happy about the JCPS no natural hair policy." The tweet going viral within minutes. Now, why not wait till the next day and call the school and try to sort it out that way?
Because it was fresh, it was on my mind, and I knew I had the rest of the night to connect to other people who may also have some concerns about the policy as well.
And she did. Soon, hundreds of responses, many from parents posting photos of their own children with hairdos that would violate the policy.
So I talked to my girlfriends about natural hair. We literally talk about natural hair every single day.
The tweet first striking a nerve here in Louisville.
I thought about coming to work several times with it out, but I've always decided against it. Would it be too much? But really, what is too much?
That same question at the center of a growing conversation about self-identity, with more and more African Americans choosing to embrace their God-given hair.
Alright, so this next part of the video, they just kind of talk about like the natural hair movement. Again, one of the things in this video, they do briefly bring up Rachel Dolezal, the white woman who is identifying as black, but so I'm gonna skip over that part. They also play some Beyonce, so I'm not trying to get this stream copyrighted, but the last part I wanted to skip to is again the black people on the school board to allow this policy to happen. Right here.
But braids were never meant to cause controversy back in Louisville, Kentucky, says William Allen, principal at Butler High.
We're about kids here at this school, so.
He says the ban on natural hairstyles was all a big misunderstanding.
The language for braids has always been in our dress code. It's strictly for male students. There's never been any restrictions for our female students.
Doesn't a policy like that inherently single out black kids?
All of our policies are for all of our students. It gave us a chance to take a step back and look at culture versus style and look at specific instances that we have in our dress code policy that might relate to a specific group.
Just after Attica Scott's tweet, the school quickly called a meeting.
Today, I'm proposing that we immediately suspend our section of the dress code policy about students' hair.
Suspending the policy, but igniting more anger.
I would love to hear from the students first. They have affected us as an African American community. Instead of making assumptions, y'all should have asked.
But one black member of the decision board, Sharice Baldwin-Trainum, mom of a 15-year-old daughter at Butler, says the policy was simply about neat grooming, not offending a culture.
I know it sounds crazy, you know, standing here with an African-American woman with braids. I was not offended. It doesn't mean that I don't understand the offense.
She hopes future issues can be resolved before going on social media.
I don't want to live in a world where everywhere I go, I have to see everything as black and white. I don't want to raise my kids like that, but I will teach them to stand up for what is right. I applaud her for seeing an issue and standing up for it. But I think that we have to be very careful about how we address these issues because it affects our children.
It's not about intent, it's about how it landed. And the way that it landed for me and my daughter and other students and other parents is that it was offensive and it was discriminatory.
But you've got a principal who's black, you've got a couple of parents on the actual council who are black.
Yes.
So do you really think that they were out to discriminate against black students?
Just because you're black doesn't mean you're not feeding into the system. I work at places often where there's still issues of race. I've worked at universities where there have been issues of race. That doesn't end just because I work there and I'm black.
Butler has since changed its dress policy to say that hair must be well-groomed, well-kept, and at a reasonable length. A positive outcome, say Ashanti and Attica Scott, and hopefully a lesson, they say, that will resonate beyond the classroom.
It's not about one school. It's about the public school system and the way that it's policing kids who are trying to get an education. They just want to come and learn.
For Nightline, I'm Deborah Roberts in Louisville, Kentucky.
All right, so yeah, that's the video clip. I just wanted to kind of show, as a black person, just because, and like the lady said at the end, just because you work somewhere, that does not mean the structures and the systems that were set in place to discriminate all of a sudden go away. And also, sometimes black people can like feed into anti-blackness. It shouldn't be banned for boys either. That doesn't make it better. That doesn't, that did not help prove the point. Fudgy says, aka, I would rather just assimilate than fight for my own presentation. For real. And that's honestly like the really sad part, All schools, people are frightening. They cut off hair of Native American children. Any degree of making a child feel like they're not enough is assault. For real. For real. So yeah, just wanted to kind of put that in there to end out.
We have a
so
story
now
from that.
we have finally made it to towards the end of the presentation. So I kind of want to talk about like make a point that like how we talk to and about our hair speaks volumes. So on the left, I put a bunch of words that I have heard used to describe black hair, whether it's growing up or whether it's presently. And then on the right, I kind of reframed those words into other ways that we can look at our hair. And I really think one thing that we can do, one small thing we can do, is really change our language. Not that, language in and of itself, like we need action, we need policy, of course, too. But our language really does matter. The way we speak about our hair and to our hair speaks volumes. Whether, instead of, call it like, yeah. So I think that's all. That's all. That's basically the point. How we speak to our hair matters. And so I also wanted to make a note that the list on the left, honestly, I was like rapid fire. Like I could name these words way faster than I could list off the words on the right, which I feel like is kind of sad. Like I came up with the list, but the negative phrases like were on the top and the front of my mind where I had to think more about the positive phrases. I think it's just important that we not just like black is beautiful, of course, but there's also like we can change the way we look at doing our hair, like I use the word a labor of love as opposed to like thinking of like, oh, I have to do my hair. Like our hair can also be like a labor of love. Instead of seeing our hair as like wild, uncooperative, and out of control, we can look at it as free. We can look at it as luscious, desirable. It is your crown. Black hair is magic. It defies gravity. So as opposed to, all the words I listed on the left, there are other words we can use to, speak about our hair. And honestly, the fact that it took me a little while, even at my place, to come up with the right list, I feel like it's telling about our society, We need to be more positive with not just ourselves, but our hair too. Definitely. So yes, so how this all connects. I originally, I started off by just making a little video about hair representation in gaming, particularly talking about this Dark and Lovely Ebonics collab. And I really think the message from that is that black hair is so intersectional. And so that's kind of the point of this live stream, was to kind of talk about how intersectional black hair is. And I feel like for companies or for brands to even make small actions that signal to black people, that basically say like, hey, y'all are good enough as is, like those types of actions matter. And whether or not these things can be seen as virtue signaling can be another conversation. But yeah, we need to definitely fully understand black hair history to understand the subtext of the present, like why these things all connect and why these things matter. True change is only going to come when it's not considered a dress code violation or wild and unruly. For black people to show up just as their most free, least palatable, full selves. And that doesn't happen at the place of, the dominant culture's comfort or understanding. And so again, that's also why we need policies, we need repercussions for people who decide to discriminate against us because, our hair makes them uncomfortable. Because how does my hair affect the job that I do? As long as there are no problems with me doing my job with my hair how it is, I don't think there should be, any problems. Also, anti-blackness is internalized, and black people can absolutely, perpetuate racist myths about Afro-textured hair being unruly, being unkempt, being dirty, being ugly, being difficult. This all stems from colonialism and anti-blackness, and so the work to decolonize our minds needs to be done with all of us, not just, people of other cultures. Like, this needs to be done within everyone so that we can just create a more equitable world. And last but not least, I want to leave off with this quote. So this is Kiwi on the Sticks. And this is actually like the reason I found out about this whole Dark and Lovely campaign is because I saw some sponsored live streams about it. I didn't know about this campaign before then. And so I want to play this clip because I feel like Kiwi, she's a streamer. She made this really great, she made this great statement about like why brands bringing hair representation to things even like The Sims is so important. There's this message from her chat that says, "We are people, we're not seasonal decorations." And so we'll get more into that. Whoops, come on. Hopefully there's not an ad. All right, no ad.
Go to her, but
All right.
but yeah, very glad and excited that I could also be part of this because this is such a monumental thing, and I hope that other brands and video games and companies also take note. You know what I was also gonna say too, y'all? I'm so glad that this was not like, this might sound terrible, I don't know. Dark and Lovely, cover your ears. But what I was gonna say was, I'm actually really glad that this was not a Black History Month campaign. And let me tell you why though, because I love when stuff happens for Black History Month. I really do. But I also think it's so important for people to understand and see Black people existing and making huge strides and stuff like that without it coming across as like a performative thing. It matters year round. Yes, exactly. And that type of inclusion and stuff should be a thought all the time. We should always be striving toward making sure more and more people are able to enjoy things, especially when 73%, you know what I'm saying? 73% Black people playing games. That's like, that's huge. That's so huge. So yeah, I really appreciate that this is happening in April. And I hope that there's more initiatives that people are taking all throughout the year to make sure there's more diversity and more options for people, for all people, for queer people, for...
So yes, I just loved that, that quote with Kiwi, and that's the last clip. I know I had so many videos, you guys. But yeah, I just thought that was powerful. So my final thought, and then we're done. This was so much longer than I expected. I literally expected to be live for like an hour. Anyways, my final thoughts, the changes that I really want to see is I really want to see us being able to change the way we speak about and perceive Black hair. I definitely think that's a form of self-care, and that's a form of hair love. Hair Love was a phenomenal Oscar award-winning short film about a father and a daughter bonding over him learning how to do his daughter's hair. It's a great watch. Go look it up on YouTube. There's a book as well. But yes, we need more hair love. I feel like we need to change the way we speak about our hair. We need to change the way we perceive our hair. This trickles down into our media representation, as well as our own knowledge and tolerance for our hair. My other thing I want to see change is no more colonialism. So the colonialism, the Columbusing, as JJ said earlier, that see Afro-textured hair as unprofessional or dirty or some zoo-like spectacle need to be dismantled, because Black people will only continue to chemically alter their hair if they keep receiving microaggressions and discrimination for the way our hair naturally grows out of our head. I also wish, just for me, put a little picture of me in a pic. This is little Asmara. I also wish it was like normalized for kids to like cry when we get our hair detangled. Like the fact that we're low-key like punished for like being upset when our hair is being burned or detangled is kind of wild, because I'm sorry, but like detangling hurts, like especially when you're a kid, like it hurts. Like why are we being punished for like doing our hair? Like that does not help us see our hair in a positive light, like crying when you get your hair detangled, that's a Black kid rite of passage. But yeah, this is another little thing. And then I kind of wanted to reflect a little bit on my own journey with my hair. I obviously talked a little bit before about, coming into my Blackness and how my hair was just like one of those many things that allowed me to embrace that part of my identity more. I also want to, I included this particular picture, or this picture in particular, because I also know that I have work to do when it comes to like also like being more comfortable with my hair when it's not wash day. Like the original picture I showed you guys with like this, let me see, this picture. Oh, it's all the way up here. This picture, this was wash day. So like these were like freshly washed curls. I also feel like I also still do have work to do to like know and really practice my hair being enough when it's not, you know, the freshest curls. You know, it's okay to not look perfect every day. And it's okay to just show up authentically. Hair doesn't have to look perfect every day. We don't always have to have, you know, fresh curls for them to be still good enough or for them to still be pretty, you know? So sometimes even when my hair is not freshly washed, I want to be more comfortable being like, I can still get on camera. Like I can still, like, I don't have to wash my hair every single time I get on camera, or, I want to make sure I also am taking pictures of my hair when it's like shrunken and not perfect, if that makes sense. So yeah, and last but not least, I want to say that Black women ultimately are Black people. We deserve the freedom to choose how we want to style our hair. I just don't want colonial systems influencing those decisions. And those colonial systems are all the things we talked about today and more. So yes, that is the change I want to see when it comes to Black hair and representation and our community. That's it. I put as the slide, this is discussion time, but I feel like we've kind of already discussed a lot of stuff. So feel free to leave your chat messages, any final thoughts you had. Again, leave a like if you enjoyed this presentation. I appreciate you guys for still being here because, girl, I didn't know how long this is going to be. Anyone want to guess how many slides I have? How many slides this presentation was? Fudgy says, voluminous is my favorite term. I love full, thick hair, period. I needed these 2 hours. This was grounding. Oh, thank you. That's sweet. I'm glad you were here with us. The Comfian says, realizing that the world had a problem with God, not me, helped me feel confident wearing my hair. He created us this way, beautiful and unique. Period. That's a good way to think about it. Ebonics is so dope. I followed her after you discussed her. Yes, her career is really, really fascinating. I didn't know, like, obviously, like, I've heard of her name before just in the Sims community, but like, it was interesting to read about her career and all the things she's done. So definitely give Ebonics a follow. She's done so much work and she continues to do a lot of work to normalize Blackness in gaming and beyond just the Sims. So I thought that was cool. Amy says, oh, LOL, I was wondering what season you are. We are, wait, what is it? Paraded out at Thanksgiving. I'm glad I stopped to see what you were discussing, Asmara. Yes, I'm glad you were able to stop by. Yeah, Comfian says 15 slides. Y'all, anybody else have guesses of how long this was? But yeah, I'm trying to think, do I have any other thoughts? I think that's basically it. We talked about a lot of stuff today. If anybody is listening to this as a VOD, feel free to leave a comment below of anything else that came to mind or that you thought of. Again, I like to see these types of streams or this type of style a video as more of a discussion. So I'm always curious of hearing from you. JJ says 36 slides. All right. Any other final guesses? Bree says, this was a great stream and discussion. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate you for moderating. Y'all, to the total slides, this was... all right, 49. Actually, I have a few more. Technically, it's 55. The fact that I put together a 50-slide presentation in literally less than a week, I'm kind of surprised that I did this. And it's still not perfect. Like, you know, there's still some stuff I wish I would have done differently. I also wish I would have had time to do a test run. So this is my first time doing this presentation. You guys are the first to witness it. But yes, 55 slides. I want to do, before we end out, do a quick shout out of some sources where if you appreciated my videos on this topic, hair representation, I definitely recommend you check out. So there's a phenomenal docu-series on Netflix called The Black Beauty Effect. There are 3 episodes. They go over makeup, skincare, and hair, and how Black women or Black people have really influenced and the space. So episode 3 is about hair, if you just want to hear about hair, but the series is really interesting and really good. So the Black Beauty Effect on Netflix, go give it a watch, get your screenshots out, or take a screenshot if you want to remember to come back to this. Another source I really liked is the one from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Smithsonian article. It's called Annie Turnbow Malone, Madam C.J. Walker, in the Complicated History of the Hot Comb, written by Mariah James, Robert F. Smith, and published in 2019. This was a great article, a great read if you want to learn a little bit more about Black history. I really enjoyed this read. Another source, definitely check out Stephanie Wine and Chill's breakdown of the hair relaxer lawsuit. If you want to learn more about the effects that hair relaxers have on Black people's hair. And this really should be a class action lawsuit. It's kind of ridiculous that it's not. So yes, great source. I definitely recommend checking out. And last but not least, I definitely recommend looking at Lip Gloss's op-ed about her shrunken 4C natural hair that went viral. I just think her journey to like self-acceptance is interesting. And so I'm sad that she basically got bullied off the internet, but I think this piece does end with a little bit of like hope, you know, about being authentic and the importance of it. And how texturism really does have real effects, you know? So, how to support this content. If you've made it this far, anybody watching either right now or in the VOD, be sure to leave a like. The engagement helps out a ton. And sharing. You guys, y'all underestimate the power of sharing, like whether it's on social media, like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whether you send the link directly to someone who you think could benefit from this conversation. They can even listen to it as a podcast, you know, or in the background. I would greatly appreciate that. Or if you don't have a specific person, just press the share button. I don't know if this is true, but I think just pressing the share button and copying the link helps. Like, be like, oh, this person liked this video enough to share it. So yes, please share either on social media or with a person in particular that you think would benefit from this conversation. Oh, hello. Other ways, you can leave a super chat or a super thanks. A couple dollars goes a long way, and I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, I definitely want to keep bringing you guys more educational but fun content and about various topics, you know, various things that affect our society and our daily lives. And last but not least, subscribe, but only if you want to watch more videos. I don't want idle subscribers, so subscribe only if you want to watch more from me. So those are ways that you can support. Again, I appreciate you guys so much for being here. And that's pretty much it. It is literally dark outside. So yeah. I will see you all next time. Yeah. Bye, everyone. I don't know what my next stream will be, but I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.